that's going to be installed along the road here too. So there's going to be a lot of work that's going to be happening out there, and a lot of dollars from the feds, state, county, local utilities, as well going into this corridor, pouring into it. So we'll talk a little bit about the timing of the project, and I mean, this is the financial side. We have, so we had a revenue side that our first grant, the $4,200,000, showing that we were able to get from the federal government. We're able to show that there is a strong economic development opportunity here in Deer Park along Blue Ash Road. And that was what attracted OKI, as the agency that oversees that federal dollars. We're able to tell a story that we have an opportunity here that we can dress up the infrastructure and create a catalyst project that's going to bring in a lot of new improvements to the corridor and economic development. So with that $4 million, we're able to get with the Hamilton County Transportation Improvement District. They threw in $250,000, and with those dollars, we were able to start initiating design activities. And then progressing through, we're able to work with other agencies. Last December, we got the last major piece that we needed, around $1 million in OPWC funding, which is approved by the taxpayers in Ohio for the state to sell bonds, and then that money is available through an application process, competitive application process that we were able to win. And that completed our $5,974,000 improvement project. So we were able to do that by idling the cup around for several years to several people, several agencies. Some of these applications we submitted and we weren't successful, and we had to submit again. And that's a part of the time frame that we've had to work with. You know, going back to 2008 with the comp plan, and then kind of moving forward, you know, this is set up to try to take advantage of as many programs that are out there. And we have a really, I think, a compelling story with the economic improvement. So where does the money go? Generally speaking, the lion's share of those dollars are going to be tied up in construction. That's where the money's going. Because we are having to do full depth repairs, we're not able to, this is going to be a patch job. We're not going to try to salvage pieces or parts of the pavement or the curb, or, oh, there's a couple of squares of sidewalk. No, we're going to come in and we're going to remove all the sidewalk, all the curb, all the storm sewer, all the pavement. So that's going to be picked up and put back with new material. So and we're not sure what we're going to find underneath the pavement. If you look out there, there's a lot of water gets underneath the pavement now, which is part of the issues with freeze thaw, potholes, condition, the rideability of the road. So we're going to pick all that up and get under there and see what's going on, what do we need to do to fix and rectify those areas, and then build back a new road. Basically, we want to try to set things up from the next 50 years for Deer Park when we talk about Blue Ash Road. So lion's share is going to construction, and we have environmental, geotech, the design, and right-of-way acquisition, which is right now we are generally through the surveying and design portions. Talking to BJ, the final plans are going to go to the Ohio Department of Transportation here in January. So we're kind of wrapping up the final changes with the Ohio Department of Transportation to get ready for that January submittal with that. And then the right-of-way acquisition, we're starting to wrap up that portion of the phase of the project. So construction. So this is, the intent is we're going to be offering the plans to the contracting community, and this is the most current set of plans as of I think late October that were submitted to ODOT. There will be on the street available for contractors to bid that May, June of 2019. With the intent construction starting in August of 2019. Ahead of that though, Duke Energy is planning to come in and replace the pole line along that parking area where the existing wood poles are. I believe that pole line has is it a 30-year life, BJ?
Well,
30 or 40-year lifespan?
This doesn't like me very well, but anyway, Tim, I think, was ready to run me when I have to do. The poles that are in there have a 50-year lifespan.
Okay.
They're due to be replaced in 2023, right after this road would be done. They were gonna come right back in and tear everything up and put it. So, I've said this before, you all heard me, I told Duke, you put one shovel in the ground, you bought Blue Ash Road. So naturally, they accelerated their timeline, and they're getting with Tim from Pioneer, and they're gonna start putting up, you're gonna see the new hurricane poles go up.
Yep.
So that'll be a better enhancement than what we have right now.
Yes, and they're gonna be with the steel poles, they're not going back with the transmission lines on the wood poles, they're going to the metal poles. You may see in other parts of town being constructed, so. And it's gonna give add to that crisp look to Blue Ash Road. Again, the intent is that you wanna be able to see new infrastructure in the public right of way when you're looking.
And that's gonna be, they're gonna start in April, and they're saying April 19th is the date, but it's at least a 2.5-month project for the.
At least, yeah, so that's gonna be some of the first activities you see with Duke Energy coming in. And they're going to have they're going to be taking some of the parking areas along the railroad tracks, because they have to stage poles and equipment as they're moving through the project. And then you're gonna see bucket trucks and some temporary lane closures. There's gonna be a little bit of inconvenience with that work, but that's gonna be the leading edge of what you're going to see. The intent is that we need to get them out of the way. We need to get the lines up and over at the intersections, because we are coming back in with new improved mast arm signals. We have lighting, that's gonna be a part of the project along Blue Ash Road. So those things are necessitating them to relocate. And then with coming up on that 50-year lifespan, we need to go ahead and get everything up and out of the way. And then that way they have a new system that they can and then proceed for the next 50+ years themselves.
Is that all of Blue Ash Road or just the construction area?
No, that's gonna be all Blue Ash Road. Actually, that whole project, moving those poles, believe it or not, starts all the way down through Silverton, coming out of the ridge and up this way. That whole line is a feeder line. Basically Duke goes up to Blue Ash to the substation and all the way up into Blue Ash up into Mason and everything else.
Yes.
I want to ask you, when they put in tax thing for the streets and sidewalk, we understood that they were gonna cover most of all the residential streets.
Different projects.
Yeah, so how we have structured the revenue side of this project is to not have to, the intent is to not have to heavily tap into the local road levy that was passed locally here in Deer Park. So the intent of this project is to fund this with county, state, and federal dollars.
I'm still a little confused, aren't they gonna do anything on the residential streets?
Well, we're
repaving?
working on that, sir.
Oh,
That's a
Different project.
There's two different things.
Well, I don't know.
No, you're fine.
You're asking.
It's two different things altogether.
That part where St. John's is going towards the park, that's terrible, it's in bad shape.
We're
And when you
working on
leave
that.
Hager on the, what's it, Silver Crest, that's really bad, it makes the city look bad.
Hey, Joe, that's a different project, okay? He's here to talk about Blue Ash Road.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, if you got questions on that, you can talk to PJ afterwards, on those other streets.
Well, I thought I'd take the opportunity and find out what's going on, the latest on that.
Okay. So yeah, the portion through our project, some of the early estimates that Duke was looking at was in the $5 million range. Just with their facilities and the limits of this project, and we're talking about $6 million, we're talking about $5 million, and Cincinnati Waterworks is looking at $1 million+. plus dollars, to work in this area. So you're talking about a lot of capital dollars for infrastructure being poured into this stretch of Blue Ash Road. So with that leading edge work with Duke, and then getting them out of the way, so the roadway contractor can then start to proceed with that construction, intent starting here in August, kind of the fall time period, with the August 2019. One of the first phases of work that we're proposing with the project is to address the sidewalks. So this is gonna be everything business side, on the east side of Blue Ash Road, along the businesses. And we do have to replace the sidewalks and holes, so that's going to be a pretty substantial disruption to business during that time period. There's really no way to get around that. Because when you look at everything in front of your business, on that sidewalk area, it's gotta be picked up, it's gotta be put back. The intent with the plans is that we're setting things up to be worked on in blocks. The last thing that we were wanting to see was a entire project from Sycamore Township down to Dunedin, no sidewalk at all. We want to try to avoid that situation where we have long stretches of the project that are open. Because that case, you're going to have contractors that are going to be working nearly a half mile away, and then you're going to have an open construction site in front of your business for a long period of time. So the intent is to basically have a rolling work zone moving along Blue Ash Road from block to block. So that's going to try to intensify the construction, so they'll limit the impact. There's going to be an impact, but we're going to try to limit that from a time period, and then we're going to move on to the next block. With the intent that previous block is the sidewalk's been removed, and we've been able to come back and have the new sidewalks in place. And also, there's the sidewalk and pavement work too. That's a part of that. So the final project will have a band of pavers and new sidewalk. So that's the first phase of construction. So we're trying to address everything on the business side. And what that's going to also allow is, because the future phases are going to have some impact, further impact into the parking area, that it's going to open up the side streets. That if customers were to park on the side streets, they're going to be able to walk to your business. The sidewalk's going to be open. It's going to be open from that point forward through all of the remaining phases of the project. So it's going to at least be able to maintain pedestrian traffic flow for the remainder of the project. So some of that short-term pain. The intent is that we're going to have plates, gravel. We're going to find ways to keep your the doorway open, to get people into the business. So the intent is not to rip things up and you got to go through the back door. No, that's not the case here. We're going to still try to keep storefront access to that. It's just it's going to look like a construction zone though for that period of time.
What do you consider short period of time?
The whole construction period is 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, so the total is 1 year.
Okay.
So this may be 3 to 4 weeks
Okay.
in that block.
Yeah, I got you.
So then there's going to be varying phases.
Mhm.
So depending on where you're at, it may be a couple weeks to 3. But generally, we're trying to keep that within 3 to 4 months. We want to have the sidewalks complete
Okay.
along Blue Ash Road.
Tim, I want to bring something up.
Yeah.
In this project, between Tim, myself, and some others, we've had 2 big obstacles. Number one is the railroad, and Duke's the other one. We've just recently got into a big discussion with the railroad about the crossings, where we wanted them to upgrade our crossings as far as pavement and things like that. Naturally, their solution was close shank, and then you guys will do it for nothing. We said, no, that's not an option. We got businesses there, we have to protect those businesses. So we're in a negotiation period right now with the railroad about fixing all those crossings, including shank, because I turned them into the PUCO for that dangerous crossing there. So naturally, I'm not their favorite person right now. But I wanted to let you know, behind the scenes, we're working to try to get the state through the Ohio Rail Commission to address this issue instead of putting that burden on the city. Because it's really their crossing. We have to do everything by their word. creed and whatever else they came up with. We finally got Duke to listen to us, now the railroads, you know, you all wanna have a prayer session about the railroad, let me know. But it's, where I'm going with this is your engineer does more for you than you think. He can sit and draw a line out on a piece of paper, but behind the scenes, him and I are fighting to get this stuff done. Because what we wanna do is have a minimal impact to the businesses, and also the council doesn't have to be pulling their hair out every Monday night at a meeting over the complaint, so we wanna minimize that. But I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, that's right, and they're bringing money to the table too.
Right.
So they're not coming in looking for us to pay for all their work, so they do have money to come in.
I mean, but it's just a work in progress, and a lot of these things are, I hate to say it, but they're always Johnny come lately to fill the bottle. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, as we got the sidewalks complete along the business frontage, the next phase of construction is starting to get into the parking areas and the pavement. And this is again, it's the rideability, the serviceability of that pavement, it's at the end of its life. It needs to be replaced full depth, so we've got to get out on the road to do that. As well as with all the utility work and everything that we're doing in the roadway, it's gonna look like a quilt there too. Patches and temporary patches. As we put the water lines in, we've got a new gas main that's, you know, a few years ago that was put in, new storm sewer that we're also installing. So we've got to come back and replace that full depth. And because we got to replace that full depth, we're going to be in the roadway, we're going to have some pain when it comes to maintaining traffic. So that's going to be a challenge for this project in this corridor. So what we're looking at with the second phase of construction is at creating a detour, and so through traffic, we'll be detouring along Plainfield and then over to Galbraith back to Blue Ash Road. And we would be maintaining southbound traffic along Blue Ash Road. So local traffic is still able to be able to access Blue Ash, basically up to Dunedin. But at that point, local traffic will be servicing the local roads, but we want to keep through traffic over onto Plainfield and Galbraith. The parking in this scenario, the railroad side will still be available for parking. And again, you can park as you're able to now and then walk across. We are creating opportunities for pedestrians to be able to cross at certain points, be able to get to the new sidewalk area. So they're able to cross over either at intersections or certain designated points. And then at that point, once they're on the sidewalk, it's new sidewalk, new frontage along the businesses, so they're able to use that infrastructure and traverse north-south along the corridor and get where they need to go. So we've been able to accommodate it in that manner. And that's going to allow us to then get into the roadway and give the contractor enough width and to be able to replace the roadway. Now, during that time period, you're going to see a pretty substantial cut into the road. If you're looking at a pavement section, it's generally about 18 inches in depth. And we don't know what we're going to find underneath there. I suspect that we're going to have some removal of the subgrade. It's going to be wet underneath there. The water sits on Blue Ash Road right now, and it doesn't flow very well, so it's getting underneath there. And we need to make sure that we're going to have a proper base that we're going to build this road on, because again, we're trying to get that next 50 years with this work. So they may have to be excavating down 6 to 12 inches. So in some of those areas, it's going to look like large holes out there as they're building it back up. And again, the intent is to try to work in blocks. So the contractor's going to have intensified efforts in those blocks. So we're not looking at an entire project again that's under construction and they may be a half mile up the road. We don't want that. We want to try to keep the work focused and moving through the corridor. As they complete this work, then we're able to take advantage of the new pavement that's been constructed, and then we're able to basically reverse the flow, where now northbound traffic is able to traverse along Blue Ash Road, and then southbound traffic is detoured over on Galbraith to Plainfield, and coming back in south of the railroad tracks. this northbound traffic, at this point, they're able to travel north, and then also the parallel parking is now available on the business side. So we've been able to basically replace a lane of pavement and the parking area through that first phase. So again, parking will be available. In this case, it'll be more convenient. It will be reduced, because now you're talking about just the parallel parking. The parking at the railroad side will not be available in those areas of construction. And again, the sidewalks are open too. If people are using the local street network and using the side streets, they're able to walk and become a pedestrian along the corridor and get where they need to go to. So again, working in those blocks and then moving along Blue Ash Road. And then, once they're complete with that, now we're looking at a final surface course, a final pavement marking that's going to be in place. And then during these two phases, we're constructing traffic signals, getting all the underground works. You're going to start at this point in this phase, especially, you're going to start seeing the lighting come into play. You're going to start seeing the traffic signals. You're going to start seeing some of those final details start to appear on the project. The intent is construction to be complete in fall of 2020. With that, which looks like the end of September, which gives us a little bit of time there to work in the fall. We're still able to pay, still able to do what we need to do for the project. And sometimes you get into to November and it gets a little sketchy on weather-wise in Ohio, what you're able to do. So the intent is to finish this project then. We are looking for, if anyone has a specific concern or specific feedback, please get with BJ. There may be certain issues that you may have with your particular business, especially outside in front of your door, or things that we want to make sure that we can get incorporated into the plans. Now is the time to do that, to make that happen. We talked about having till January to complete the plans, so we want to get that incorporated.
What's the plans for the west side of Blue Ash Road?
So for the west side of Blue Ash Road, it's generally just to repair and replace the pavement. Now, the parking area is going to be milled, patched, and resurfaced. Because that area also trans into the railroad property. It'll actually, a good portion of the parking that's there along the west side is actually on the railroad right-of-way. Actually not within the public right-of-way. So we do have an agreement, an annual agreement that we have that allows us to do maintenance activities on the pavement. So we have rights to be able to do the repair work, and that's how we're operating on it. So the parking area is going to be resurfaced, but the roadway itself is going to be removed and replaced.
Are you leaving pull-in parking, or is it going parallel?
So parallel parking will be on the business side, and then on the railroad side, the west side, that's going to be what's called a reversed angled parking. So it's not going to be the 90-degree parking that is there today. It's going to be, the intent is a car will travel, stop, and then back into a parking space. That way, as they're leaving, they're pointed out and towards the flow of traffic. Part of the reason we
So is the reverse angle facing south and not north?
The reverse angle will be facing south, yes. A part of this project and how we're able to get funding for this was there was a very high incident of crashes per vehicle miles traveled. Actually, we maxed out the points. There was, for the category where we were way above where that points maxed out. And part of it is that you have people who park and start to back, they can't see, and there's an accident right there before they know what happened. I have personally a few times made the mistake to nose in and regretted it when the SUV and drive a little Corolla, and you just get the right vehicle parked next to you, and you're hating life. And if you do look at the corridor now, there's a lot of vehicles that are already backing into their parking spaces along Blue Ash Road. Those are the folks who kind of know how to do this. Okay, I'm not going to nose in, I made that mistake, I'm not going to do it again. And we have done some parking studies, we have video recordings of the parking and people making U-turns and backing in, all types of different ways to park along Blue Ash Road. So, now, I'm not gonna get into the legalities of U-turns on Blue Ash Road, but it happens. We see a lot of in the videos and things, the roadway width is still gonna be the same. So a lot of the parking that's happening is still gonna be able to happen and occur.
What's to stop the northbound traffic from not pulling in phase two onto the left-hand side?
The northbound traffic proceeding and using that parking area. So one of the things that we did see in the video is that there were people that were traveling north, making a U-turn,
No, no,
mid-block.
once you do the construction,
Mhm.
you're supposed to pull past the southbound lane and back into the west side. Correct? You're passing your parking spot and backing in.
Yes.
Okay, now, I'm going northbound.
Mhm.
I decide I wanna park over there. I'm pulling in face front.
Yeah,
So I've got still face front and backing in.
Yep, so there's going to be signage along the reversed angle parking area, as well as when you pull in, you're gonna feel very awkward according to the striping that's going to be there, as well as other vehicles that are gonna be using that parking are going to be oriented in the proper direction. We're not going to prevent everyone from parking wrong. That's going to happen.
Is it a double yellow line going down the road?
It is, I believe so.
Then it's a violation for them to do that.
I'll defer to others on violations and legalities.
So there's nothing preventing anybody from pulling in face first?
There's nothing physically that's preventing anyone
Okay, that's my
from
question.
parking that way. And there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to see a lot of different parking configurations out there as this starts to open up.
Well, my
And-
concern is if you're pulling and you wanna back in,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna hit you, trying to
They're
back
already-
into your spot, cause you
I
go
see
up.
that.
They're already on your butt.
Right, they're already on your tail, so how,
Yeah, and-
It's just like parallel parking now.
yeah,
Put
it's-
the blinker on and you're good.
You're not good though, Keith. People fly.
Oh, I know.
But-
yeah, they do fly.
Yeah, people fly, and that can happen. If you're going to park at a 90-degree, you're generally coming to a near stop or stop, and then making that 90-degree parking maneuver, which is similar to having to stop and then back in as well. At some point, you're having to slow down and to a point where you're going to start a parking maneuver.
Is there still gonna be the middle lane? Like, is it still gonna be a 3-lane, where that middle lane is there?
So the.
Talking about Blue Ash and Galvin. Is that-
Yeah.
Yeah, Blue Ash and
Yes,
Galbraith,
it's still
those turn lanes are still gonna be there, Blue Ash and Galbraith.
Perfect.
Tim, I hate to interrupt. I gotta leave for a meeting. By all means, any questions that you have, please contact me. While we're still in this transitional phase before final, please get with me. I'll be glad to bring your concerns forward with Tim and see if we have some possible resolutions or some additional things that we can do to make everything more easy. My concern is I don't want any make a business interruption. The other thing is during this period too, there might be an avenue where you're gonna start seeing, some redevelopment going on. And that could open up some additional parking spaces while those buildings are coming down. So just to let you know, I'm looking at the whole big picture, not just the little area. And one of the things that bothers me a little bit, and I know you folks have been shanked over there, with buying physical, is the fact that, we do have a lot of people that aren't using the businesses, and they're using that as subsequent parking. And I will tell you this right up front, they're gonna find themselves in a little bit of a hurt because other businesses that have auto repair places are parking along Blue Ash Road, and those people will all have to move. So what we're hoping to cleanse this out so that your business has priority along Blue Ash Road, and that somebody's got a place someplace down the street just parking cars until it gets to it, that stops. So that's what we're working on.
Well, we have priority parking 2 hour on Shank, and I have never seen an officer give a ticket.
And I've
And
complained 15
People park,
times.
the apartments
I'll talk to the
park
chief
there all the
about it.
time, constantly.
They leave them there for weeks at a time.
Well, here's what I've been, I gotta be honest with you folks, I mean, my dad had the hardware store, there was the same problem. So I'll work to resolve your issue for you, okay? But I'm trying to tell you right now, I know for a fact that, God bless Roger Bean, but he dumps a lot of cars on Blue Ash Road. So the big thing is Roger, go find another place to park your cars, or we'll have them towed and impounded, and you can pay to get them out of jail, because they're not coming back. So that's where we're headed, folks. And that's been a problem for anybody that's had a business on Blue Ash Road. You know who takes your parking spots, so, okay? So we're working on it, okay? I apologize, I have to leave, I got a meeting in City Township on 1 o'clock.
Any other questions or?
Is there anywhere locally that way of parking, what do you call it, reverse parallel, is that what you call it?
Reverse angle parking?
Is there anywhere that, around here that they use that, or where's that going down?
So that is a newer parking scheme.
Like newer, this is the first time newer, or?
Newer to this
Like we're
They do
testing
it
it out,
in-
your park?
Newer, it would be new to Deer Park. It would be newer to Cincinnati. It's in areas that Indianapolis has been using this. They use it in Florida and other areas. Similar to
St. Louis, I was in St. Louis.
I've just
St.
never
Louis.
seen it.
They're similar to roundabouts.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, they were brand new to Ohio, but they had been in other places servicing for a period of time. Yes.
I wanted to ask you, what are they gonna do with the bowling alley? Last time I went to a meeting, they were talking about tearing it down, and then Rusty's, that's still vacant, and I understand somebody bought it up, they're waiting for somebody to buy it or something.
I want to apologize, I'm not aware of individual particular
Let me put my
properties.
council member hat back on. The city council is working with the owner of that property to raise that property through some grants
It's
at no
valuable
cost.
land.
It is, but at this point, it's not valuable land and it's.
No,
breaking
not the
down.
way it is
So
now.
the city is actively working to assist the owners, same as what transpired at the northeast corner of Blue Ash and Galbraith, where the old fuel station, or not fuel station, substation for electric and the recycler, they can get grants that does not tax any of our dollars and does not penalize us, but allows us to level that area to make it more attractive to someone that wants to buy the property and build things. It is
That
in the
would be
master plan.
attractive for Deer
City-
Park.
City council is working on that and a couple other pieces of property to be renovated or. That answer your question, sir?